In 2014, Prince did something almost no artist of his generation had managed to do. He got his masters back from Warner Brothers. Decades of fighting, decades of writing the word slave on his face in protest, and he finally won. Then, in 2015, he made a deal with Tidal, the streaming platform Jay-Z had launched with a promise of putting artists first, and within months, that deal had turned into a war. Prince's estate sued Tidal after his death for streaming his entire catalog without authorization. What was supposed to be a single album for 90 days became something much larger, and the legal battle that followed revealed exactly how the artist-friendly promises held up under pressure. Connected to that story is a broader songwriter credit controversy that has been building for years. Kellis, Tiffany Red, BC Jean, Azealia Banks, artists and writers describing a system where the people who actually create the music don't always get the credit or the money. Prince spent his entire career fighting that exact system. Today, we connect the dots. Everything in this video is documented and clearly labeled. Let's get into it. To understand why the Tidal situation hit Prince so hard, you have to understand what those masters meant to him. Prince spent years in a public, documented war with Warner Brothers over ownership of his own recordings. He changed his name to an unpronounceable symbol. He wrote slave on his face in marker at public appearances. He released albums independently. He did everything in his power to communicate that what was happening to him, and to artists broadly, was a form of exploitation, dressed up as a record deal. In 2014, he finally reclaimed his masters. For Prince, that wasn't just a business victory. It was the validation of everything he had been saying for decades about how the music industry actually worked.
And we are coming on the air right now with the breaking news that the pioneering musician Prince has died at the age of 57.
In his final months, Prince had been fighting Jay-Z for control of his masters. The same masters he had written "slave" on his face to protect were now being targeted by someone he had trusted.
Prince's record label just sued the rapper's company for illegally streaming just about every hit song the late singer ever released.
With that context in place, the Tidal deal made sense at first. A platform owned by artists, promising better terms, better payouts, genuine partnership. Prince contributed his album Hit and Run Phase 1 as a 90-day exclusive. He spoke publicly about wanting to support a platform that put creators first.
Well, this is certainly the sort of news that you don't want to believe is true, but Prince has died at the age of 57 years old.
In those final years,
the 90-day exclusive arrangement did not stay a 90-day exclusive arrangement. According to the lawsuit filed by Prince's estate against Jay-Z's Roc Nation and Tidal after his death, Tidal had been streaming Prince's catalog far beyond what the original agreement authorized. The estate alleged systematic, unauthorized streaming of recordings that Prince had specifically not licensed to the platform. The lawsuit described what the estate characterized as Tidal treating Prince's entire catalog as their property, while he received only the initial streaming fee from the single album deal. This is the documented legal record. The lawsuit was filed. The allegations are on the public record. The case was the subject of significant music industry coverage because of what it revealed about how artist-friendly streaming platforms actually operated when the contracts were examined closely. Prince had spent 30 years fighting Warner Brothers for doing exactly what his estate was now alleging Tidal had done, treating an artist's life work as corporate property rather than the artist's own. The irony was not lost on anyone paying attention. The platform that had positioned itself as the antidote to corporate exploitation of artists was facing the same accusations as the labels it had claimed to replace. Separate from the Tidal dispute, a broader conversation about songwriter credit and publishing has been building in the music industry for years. And several of the most prominent voices in that conversation have pointed at the same patterns Prince was describing throughout his career. Kelis was the most direct. When Beyoncé's Renaissance album dropped in 2022, Kelis went public on social media alleging that her 2003 hit Milkshake had been sampled on the track Energy without her knowledge or permission.
That also really concerned me because it made me think that, wow, so you mean you do all these things to take care of yourself and you die so young?
She described being given no advance notice, no request for permission, no communication. The sample was in the finished released product before she knew it existed. Tiffany Red, a Grammy-winning songwriter who has worked with Jennifer Hudson and Fantasia, went further. In a detailed public video, she described a pattern of songwriters receiving a percentage of publishing credit on songs they wrote entirely, and producers receiving credits and points on work they had limited involvement in. She also described speaking with a writer whose song had been written 6 years before it reached Beyoncé, and who received 25% of a song they had created entirely. These are documented public statements from named individuals making specific on-record claims. We present them as such. The BC Jean situation around If I Were a Boy is one of the most documented cases in this broader conversation. BC Jean wrote the song as her own lead single, shopping it to labels for her own album. Beyoncé's team became aware of the song and recorded a version. BC Jean was credited as songwriter, something she described as bizarre since she had not written it for someone else to perform.
With him privately, he said, "You know what the elevator is, right?"
No.
I said, "No, what's the elevator?" He said, "Well, the elevator is the devil."
She later clarified that claims the song was stolen were exaggerated by the internet, that she received songwriting credit and compensation. But her description of how she found out her song was being recorded by someone else, and her phrase, "I just didn't realize how it worked," captures exactly what Tiffany Red and others have been describing. A system where artists and writers often don't fully understand what they're agreeing to until after the fact. Prince spent 30 years making the same argument, that the music industry was built on a system designed to separate artists from their work, that the contracts were written to confuse, that the platforms and labels that claimed to champion artists were often doing the same thing the old guard had always done, just with better branding. His comments about sampling were a consistent part of his public position, that originality and genuine musicianship were being devalued by a system that rewarded whoever had the platform to distribute music over whoever had actually created it. The Kelly situation, the Tiffany Red revelations, the BC Jean story, the NDA culture that Tiffany Red described as the mechanism keeping most people quiet. All of it maps onto what Prince was describing, not as conspiracy, but as the documented operational reality of how the business works when you examine the contracts, the credits, and the publishing splits. He won his battle with Warner Brothers. He lost the next one with Tidal before he could see it through. The artists speaking out now are fighting the same battle. Some of them are winning. Most of them are still waiting for an industry that claims to put creators first to actually do it. Prince spent decades making one argument. The music industry takes from artists and calls it a deal. The platforms change. The language changes. The outcome stays the same. His documented war with Tidal over unauthorized streaming of his catalog showed that artist-friendly branding did not automatically mean artist-friendly contracts. His estate sued. The legal battle confirmed exactly what he had been warning about. The songwriter credit controversy, Keyless, Tiffany Red, BC Jean, the NDA culture Tiffany Red described, shows the same pattern operating at the level of creation itself. Not just who distributes the music, who gets credit for writing it. Prince was saying all of this before most of these specific cases were public. His instinct about how the system worked, built on 30 years of fighting it from the inside, turned out to be accurate in ways the industry is still catching up to. The people speaking out now are doing what he did, at personal cost, against significant institutional pressure. Because the alternative is staying quiet. Drop your thoughts in the comments, subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you next time.